think it would have to be when we discussed about communism in China, because I enjoyed analyzing the propaganda posters and like watching the documentaries and the movies.
Khmer Rouge. It was because the Khmer Rouge was an interesting part of history for Cambodia, and people around me are affected by it, and it shows that it was quite interesting for me to learn. My second favorite would probably be the Korean War because I'm Korean, and it exemplifies my ethnical history, and it shows the tragedy and things that my people had to overcome.
Korean War and why comfort women. The reason to this is probably because as a Korean, this topic sparked my interest the most, and I was able to relate to my country's history. And I also appreciated the fact that I was being educated as well as increasing my knowledge on my own country's history. And also knowing this history not only helps me understand the past, but also the present, as Korea is still split into North and South.
I think my favorite ancient study is the event studies about China because this really leads me to understand China's history and also many knowledge that I as a Chinese can learn from the textbook, such as the Tiananmen Square, the things that we're not able to find in the website and also in the textbook.
Japanese imperialism and Japanese history, and because I found it really interesting because before Asian studies I didn't really know that Japan lost its military. I didn't know that it had such an important role in World War II, and I didn't really know anything about its culture, history, and things like that. So it was really interesting to learn about that in Asian studies, and it was a really important part of Asian history.
I'd say my favorite lesson in Asian studies is when we focus on communism, especially touching on stuff like the Communist Manifesto and Karl Marx and his ideas and his opinions, and it was really popular back in history, and we learned about it because of its applicability in Asia, because communism was really widespread during that time. And so we learned communism not just on the surface, we learned it in depth, a certain depth where we dove deeper into the ideas and the thoughts, and so even as history developed, communism still went on today, and we can see it around us because we live in a more than non-communist society.
Khmer Rouge. It is because when I took this class I just came to Cambodia a few days ago, and I don't know any Cambodian history and culture. So after I took on Khmer Rouge, I felt I became a part of Cambodia. In addition, I'm also sad that Cambodia has similar history with Korea.
I think it would have to be the debate of the reunification of Korea, because I really enjoy debates, and I think that was really fun because the Koreans in the class, we had different sides. We had both that they should reunify and that they should not. So it was really interesting to debate about that, since it's also relevant to today.
I have two favorite activities. One would be the Socratic seminar about the reunification of Korea. It was simply very interesting, the fact that it was very formal and we were able to come up with our own logic and factual information about if reunification would be a good thing or a bad thing. And it was also extremely interesting for me because I see this debate among my family members. My mom and my dad, they often argue about this quite a lot, and it was simply interesting for me because it was like a reflection of it. And so my second favorite activity would be watching the movie about the Chinese Communist Civil War, the one where the director got a lot of criticisms for showing the dark history about China. It was interesting because it was a very entertaining movie. I think if anyone wants to learn about that time during China, I feel like that movie would be quite perfect for them to watch.
My favorite activity we did this year was probably the Socratic seminar on the topic of the reunification of Korea. I think during the seminar, everyone participated with well-supported reasonings, and it was interesting to debate over one of the most debated topics in Korea as well. And listening to my classmates' opinions regarding this topic was also very fun and interesting.
So I think my favorite activity in Asian studies is the Socratic seminar, although I'm not really active during this seminar, but it still helps me to understand more from other students and also have a deeper understanding of the topic that we're debating. I also really like to watch the documentaries and movies in the class, and which also improves a lot of understanding and impressions.
My favorite activity that we did in class was probably the reunification of Korea debate, because I think both sides did really well. It was obvious that there was a lot of preparation that went into it, and each side had a good argument, and there wasn't any heated arguments. It was all calm and civil, and I could tell that people put in work and effort to make it a good debate. And I also enjoyed pretty much any Socratic seminar we did because I like to argue and hear my classmates' arguments on different things and provide my own.
So I'd say my favorite activity in this class would probably be presentations or Socratic seminars. I really like Socratic seminars because we can prepare, we debate, and we present our info, and it's a time to fellowship, just a time to share facts, ideas, and opinions, and a really good way to communicate with each other, just sharing all that, and we can learn through more of our peers' abilities. And so moving on to my favorite activities are really just doing presentations on topics that are assigned to us. We have criteria, research on the topic, and we share our ideas and thoughts on that subject, and we learn different perspectives on what we see from different school topics. And I like this because it's visual. When they speak and they present, it's really nice and it's really entertaining to listen, and I enjoy that visual experience.
My favorite activity in Asian study was making a video for current event issues. It is because it was my first time to make a video officially in school activity. So I'm so sad that I have one more opportunity to make a video. I think I can do better.
I didn't really like reading any of the documents or pages or essentially that it's just long chapters and reading. I didn't enjoy it, but when we watched things like movies and documentaries, or when we went on the Doselang field trip, it was a lot more a much more fun way of learning about the lesson, and I paid attention much more.
The class is interesting enough, but I feel like personally it's interesting enough, but I feel like I would eliminate a lot of the reading assignments because reading is a bit of a pain for me. The packets are so long, and I just don't really enjoy those stuff. And
I think one thing we can change in this class to make it more interesting is more variety in the learning process. Instead of doing repetitive slides, notes, and documentaries, I think more debates and seminar, or perhaps group works, artistic projects, etc. will give more opportunities to make this class more enjoyable, while also increasing the effectiveness of the learning process.
Personally, I think this class should watch more documentaries and movies that are related to the lesson than just listening to a lecture for almost an hour. Because as a visual learner, it makes me remember things more clearly than just listening to a lecture. Just like when we're studying the China Communist Movement, we watched the movie To Life. I really remember all the things that were mentioned in the movie, such as the Great Leap Forward and also the Cultural Revolution. It really have a deeper impression about it.
One thing that we can add into class to make it more interesting is more games. So for example, after we have a science presentation or a lecture, add a small game or activity to help us remember the material better and understand it better, and also to make it more interesting and less lecture-y and more fun and stuff like that. So a small game or activity that just helps us engage in the material better so that we know it and understand it better. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Hi, this is Cody, and I hope that everything is good in the States, and I hope that you guys are settled and maybe your new job, teaching or whatever. Yes, we miss you a lot, and thank you for being here today.
I'd say if this kind of class could add on some hands-on projects and hands-on learning, it would be much more interesting because as for me, I'm a visual learner, and not only that, I like to get my hands on stuff, and so graphic projects and that kind of stuff, really good, really nice. Just presenting that in a historical manner, Asian studies manner for that example, really nice, and so yeah, that's Asian studies for me.
If I have more opportunity, I would like to go to field trip where we learn in Asian studies, since I think it can be a good experience to remind what we learn in class. So especially, I think Killing Fields, which is related with Khmer Rouge, is the best place for field trip, since it is an event that must not be forgotten.